Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this session of moral lessons from the. We shall be discussing another important area and passage from the Quran today. This time it has been selected from Surah Mu'minun, which is the 22nd Surah 20th of the Quran, 23rd Surah of the Quran, and verses 57 to 62 are going to be discussed. So just let me read out the text in translation first. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Innal lazina hum min khashyati rabbihim mushfiqun والذين هم بآيات ربهم يؤمنون والذين هم بربهم لا يشركون والذين يؤتون ما آتوا وقلوبهم وجلة أنهم إلى ربهم راجعون أولئك يسارعون في الخيرات وهم لها سابقون ولا نكلف نفسا إلا وسعها ولدينا كتاب ينطق بالحق وهم لا يظلمون. Indeed, those who are scared are always scared of their Lord's fear and who believe in the revelations of their Lord and who do not associate partners with their Lord, and those who, when give something for his cause, give with their hearts trembling that they have to return to their Lord. It is these people who are taking lead in good works, and they shall certainly acquire them. And we do not burden a soul beyond its capacity. And with us is the book which shall accurately disclose, and not the slightest injustice shall they suffer. So, in the Lazina hum min khashyati rabbihim mushfiqun, this is a verse which starts off by actually delineating a very important aspect of every person's life, and that is that they are fearful of their Lord. They are always looking about themselves if they are doing something which might displease or anger their Lord. Because you see, as far as our life is concerned, the Quran has made it amply clear that all things which are found in our own conscience, towards which our own human nature guides us, they're all the same for every human being, and the Almighty is pleased if we follow what is ingrained in our nature. And if we are not following that, then of course He is displeased. In other words, God's pleasure or displeasure is not something which is personal. It is something which exactly is for of our own benefit. It's much like the pleasure and displeasure on a very small scale, just a very small comparison of our own parents, our mother and father, who would be displeased if we do something wrong. And because of the fact that they have done so much for us, we are scared that we might do something which would cause them to anger. So, on a very similar note, but on a very larger scale, an exceptionally large scale, believers are those who are always on the lookout that they might not do something which would displease the Almighty. And they try their best that if ever something does take place in this regard, then they make amends for that. Of course, we are all human beings, in spite of trying our best not to do anything which might be against the pleasure of God. We at times inadvertently and at times inadvertently end up doing so. So again, we have been suggested this methodology that if ever we cross the limit, then we must apologize not only to the Almighty but also to the aggrieved party, because unless we do so, we are told that on the day of judgment, the person whom we had wronged, unless that person forgives us regarding any harm that we might have inflicted, the Almighty is not going to forgive us for that matter. So it's extremely important that we are on our own part, in our own capacity, are always on the lookout that whether something is done intentionally, deliberately, or unintentionally. In both cases, we have to apologize to the person. We have to make amends at all cost and repent before the Almighty. And the Almighty is always waiting for us to come back to Him and express our repentance, and He is one who is always wanting to forgive us. So the verse very, very importantly makes this point, and then it's the passage goes on to say that وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ بِآيَاتِ رَبِّهِمْ يُؤْمِنُونَ, and they are those who believe in the revelations of their Lord, And وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ بِرَبِّهِمْ لَا يُشْرِكُونَ, and they do not associate partners with their Lord. This, of course, means that they are ones who have full faith that whatever has been delivered to them in the Quran, in every single thing, in every single forms, the smallest of forms to the largest of them, every single thing conveyed to them by the Almighty is something which will always be true and which will always come about. So we are told that the Almighty is going to, of course, hold us accountable for any wrong that we might commit. So therefore, in this regard, as far as believers are concerned, elsewhere in the Quran we find uh, this expression that believers, when they are asked to believe in various aspects of faith, it's not that something is being imposed on them from outside and you have to blindly accept whatever is being, informed. On the contrary, the Quran is very clear that as far as all the tenets of faith are concerned, similarly, all the directives which it tells us are concerned, all of them can be argued in favor. And the reason behind or the argumentation behind a particular directive or the rationale behind it is something which can be communicated. And if they believe in these verses, it is not any belief which is based on any blind following. It is belief in which you are able to understand the reasoning behind why you are told to do something. For example, if we are asked to believe in the hereafter, or if we are asked that we should be people who will be held accountable in the hereafter, or if we are asked to believe in the previous prophets of God or the previous scriptures of God, and similarly some of the other tenets of faith, then all of them stand test to the grounds of reason. So it's sound reasoning which makes us fully aware of whatever we are going to believe in is going to be fully understood. So faith is not blind here. Faith is all something which can be reasoned out, and this is what the Quran wants us to do. That in spite of the fact that we might not be able to see God, but we are able to experience Him. We are able to feel His presence just as the force of gravity, which we cannot see, but we cannot deny. So, believing in God and believing in certain realities that we cannot see is the hallmark of believers, that they don't insist on seeing these realities. They believe in them on the basis of the rationale and reasoning offered to them. So, Wallazina, the verse, of course, is it makes it clear that they are ones who believe in the verses of their Lord, and this belief is not blind. And وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ بِرَبِّهِمْ لَا يُشْرِكُونَ. So they are not ones who associate partners with God. We all know that uh, uh, two-thirds of the Quran, maybe even more, it deals with various forms of polytheism, of various forms of shirk, which was found in Arabia in those times. And the reason was that the whole Arabian Peninsula was replete with this creed. We know that the Holy Kaaba, it had 365 idols placed in them, and they had different names. The Quran thus has referred to them like Lat, Manat, Uzza. All of these three deities were worshipped, and several other deities had their own names. So, and their belief was that these deities would bring them close to God, and they thought that God is aloof; He cannot be accessed by everyone. There are intermediaries who would be able to get in touch with them. We just cannot do it directly ourselves. And they also thought that how can God keep account of so many things going on in this universe? And He must have deputed and delegated a lot of tasks to His associates and partners who would on His behalf administer this world. And as a result, they ended up worshipping these idols. Of course, they regarded God to be the supreme idol, or the supreme God, or the supreme deity. But then they would associate so many other deities with Him for this very purpose. And the reason that the Quran says that there is absolutely no forgiveness for people who end up indulging in polytheism or doing shirk is that they are actually imputing falsehood to God. They have no proof, because if God had partners, he would have told us himself. There is, in the absence of any such information from him, we just cannot, associate someone to him without he informing us. And if we do that, we are concocting something, we are imputing a lie and a falsehood to God. And that is why you would have read in the Quran that often it is called as iftara. Iftara means imputing falsehood to God, imputing lie to God. It's like slandering against God. And this is why the Quran has proscribed it in very harsh words. So, وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْتُونَ مَا آتَوْا, and that is who gives something for his cause, they give with trembling hearts, and that they have to return to their Lord. So, such are these believers that when they get a chance to spend in the for the cause of God to various other people who are in need, they do this with trembling hearts, as if they know that this is something that they should do, and they will one day go back to the Almighty, and He will hold them accountable if people in need had come to them, and instead of helping them out, in spite of being in the position to do so, if they held back, then they will be held accountable. And so, when they are given this opportunity to spend in the way of God, their hearts tremble. It's a beautiful expression referring to the fact that they are given this opportunity to spend for the cause of God. It's not that they are blessing someone. On the contrary, they themselves are being blessed with this opportunity, and their hearts tremble with this excitement and, of course, fear at the same time that they're going to meet their Lord, they're going to come back to Him, and the favors and the blessings which they had been given, that they ended up sharing those blessings with the deprived and the underprivileged, which actually is a great honor for them. So this is how they treat the luxuries of life, or the affluence and wealth which they are blessed with. And then the Quran says that wajilat qulubuhum annahum ila rabbihim raji'un, that of course when they, with these trembling hearts they give, they know have to return to the Almighty. They're not going to stay here forever, and this accountability is going to take place. Ulaika yusari'una fil khayrati wa hum laha sabiqun. It is these people who are taking lead in good works, and they shall certainly acquire them. Which means that ulaika yusari'una fil khairat, they are the ones who take the lead, who take the initiative. They don't wait for other people. In fact, this is one thing which is their hallmark, that they try to outdo other people in doing good. So you see, outdoing other people in various areas of our life, in various spheres of our life, this comes naturally to us. We tend to dominate other people. So the Quran says that one area of this dominance is to outdo other people in works of piety, in becoming even more virtuous, in giving up vice and taking the lead. Hum laha sabiqun. They go, and then they think that this is the place, or this is the sphere in which they must be high achievers, and to them this is something of high worth, that they end up doing good works for the cause of God. And of course, at other instances, we are told that when we are doing something good for the cause of God, this is what brings us the all important objective of religion to be fulfilled, and that is taskiyah, or purification of the soul. So when we are doing good works, the benefit that we are gaining from these good works is this spiritual enhancement, is this inner purification, that we feel that we are doing something to elevate our own selves individually. And this is a feeling which is unmatched and unparalleled. And in the holy month of Ramadan, every act of piety and every act of virtue that we do, it becomes rather easy for us, because of the fact that we know that it is in this holy month the Almighty chains these devils, and they are not able to interfere in our good works. And doing righteous deeds actually becomes a habit, or a sort of habit for us, and becomes easier for us to do these things. The purpose is to gear us for the rest of the 11 months, in which this energy that we have acquired of doing good things is going to continue as much as possible until the arrival of the next year's Ramadan. So, and lastly, the Quran says, "Wala nukallifu nafsan illa wus'aha, waladayna kitabun يَنْتِقُوا بِالْحَقِّ وَهُمْ لَا يُظْلَمُونَ, and we do not burden a soul beyond its capacity. So this is something which the Almighty has said repeatedly, and the reason that this has been stated in the Quran is that the previous nations, especially the Israelites, they were burdened beyond their capacity because of their rebelliousness. They were given very strict directives, and these strict directives, if you read the Torah, for example, you will find that the Quran has actually made it clear by referring to the Torah that they were given to them zalika bi baghihim, because of their rebellious nature, because of their arrogance, and because of their inviting the wrath of God. They were given certain directives which were simply beyond them to obey them. It had become very difficult for them. So the Quran has made it clear here that La nukallifu nafsan illa wus'aha, that the Almighty does not burden a soul with directives of the Sharia which are beyond him or her. It's not that a person can say that whatever we have been asked to do is beyond our capacity. No, this is not the case. Every single directives of the Sharia, we can just weigh and we can evaluate these directives. We will find that they are so close to our nature. In fact, to be honest, we enjoy doing them if we understand why we have been asked to do them, and if we also understand that the quantity and the content of the directive that we are required to follow, if we are able to know the rationale and the reason behind it, it makes that following that directive to be extremely enjoyable, and we feel as if something which was missing in our hearts, in our own soul, has been quenched, and it was a thirst that has been quenched by following such directives. So the Quran then ends this passage by saying, وَلَدَيْنَا كِتَابٌ يَنْتِقُ بِالْحَقِّ وَهُمْ لَا يُظْلَمُونَ, and with us is a book which shall accurately disclose, and not the slightest injustice shall people or shall they suffer. So each and every deed that we are doing, the Quran has made it amply clear that it is being recorded, and this record is going to be presented before us. So imagine that whatever we do in seclusion or openly is being recorded continuously, and it shall be presented before us, and we would not be able to deny it. Not only we would not be able to deny it, the Quran at other places tells us that our own limbs will bear witness to it. That, yes, these are the things that you have been doing. And the Quran says that they will not suffer the slightest injustice, which means that the smallest amount of good that people might have done they will see its reward right before them. They should not think that these small things go unnoticed. A very small act of kindness, which we might even think might go unnoticed in the eyes of people, shall not go unnoticed in the eyes of God. It shall be there in the form of reward. So I'll end this passage, my discussion on this passage here, and with this prayer that the Almighty makes us reap the blessings of Ramadan. We are entering the last 10 days of Ramadan, and let us savor these last 10 days as much as we can, cherish them and relish them, and make the best use out of them by connecting to God, by connecting to the Quran as much as possible. So I am now available for your questions.
Thank you, Dr. Shehzad. I have two written questions from yesterday's program. The first written question is, I was listening to a lecture by traditional Mawrid on the radio. He referred to a narration in Sahih Bukhari that the one who does i'tikaf during the last 10 days in masjid will be rewarded for 2 pilgrimages and 2 umrahs. What is your opinion on the narration? Moreover, is i'tikaf a sunnah or a nafil ibadah?
Itikaf, first of all, is a nafil ibadah. It's the pinnacle of Ramadan, I would say, because this is sitting in seclusion for at least for a maximum of 10 days. In fact, you can sit for even more or less than that. The Prophet would sit for itikaf, and we understand from the practice of the Prophet that itikaf was something which was in fact it was mandatory for him, because once he was not able to do itikaf, so the next year he actually did the itikaf for double the amount, for 20 days. So for him it was incumbent, it was mandatory, but for the rest of the Muslims it is a highly recommended practice. It's something that gives you the seclusion to connect to God even more. But as far as the narrative you are concerned, I haven't. I don't think that it is found in the Sahih of Bukhari. I think you need to recheck your sources, and I haven't come across this, at least in the Sahih of Imam Bukhari. So if you could send me the reference, the Arabic text, or the reference exactly where you read it, I need to check it, because as far as I'm concerned, I don't think that it is authentic.
Okay, the writer of this question mentioned that they're listening to a lecture on the radio actually. So they came across this narration during the
So
lecture.
because they said it was narrated from the Sahih of Imam Bukhari, so that is a little surprising for me, because I haven't come across Imam Bukhari, because one gets to gets used to the style of authors who record these narrations, and it is not how Imam Bukhari generally comes about recording these narrations. So I cannot comment unless I can see the text and see how it has been reported.
Okay, thank you. The second question is in relation to yesterday's session, and the question says, when we take our education system into account here in Pakistan, people are mainly focused on getting good grades and scoring high. This is important, but that's not the aim of education. The global world is now working on emotional and social learning, but in Pakistan, the focus is still on marks. Since you are a scholar, what are your takeaway on the concept that as an individual, parent, and teacher, how important is it for us to work on developing the habits such as forgiveness, managing aggression, stress, and giving unconditional positive regard to our children? How significant this would be for our present and future generations if we work on their character building in our education system?
So yes, unfortunately, this is true for the education system of Pakistan. All over the world, even there are certain systems which are being practiced within Pakistan and followed within Pakistan with different syllabi to obtain marks, but to learn the methodology in order to solve a problem. So to put it another way, systems in the rest of the world, or education systems in the rest of the world, they not only cater for character building at a very early age. I think the most important thing that they teach you, which is not the case unfortunately with Pakistan, is what we call critical thinking. They give you they equip you with this barometer that in order to move forward in life, don't take things for granted. Whenever you are given something, go behind it, research into it, whether they are precepts of religion or science or social science or any subject. Argue and discuss and debate. So the culture of discussion, debate, critical thinking, exchange of views, and at the same time of tolerance, in which each person can hold his view or and differ with other people. These are the hallmarks of of educational system, which is found in many parts of the world. We have things like emotional intelligence given very high significance, in which, of course, interpersonal relationships, socializing, empathy, sympathy, consideration, compassion, other human values which bring us into contact with humanity, all of them are stressed. So as a student of religion, all that I can wish for is that this is something that we immediately adopt as much as soon as possible, because this is only the way out, and we are actually losing our younger generations to a lot of things which they tend to do just because they think that many people are doing them. We have brilliant minds. I can tell you out of my teaching career that I have seen so many young, absolutely brilliant minds. They go, I mean, their brilliance is just wasted because that brilliance ends up in just getting as much marks as you would like to. So it's like scoring high without actually learning the technique, without actually learning the methodology, without learning critical thinking. So it's basically learning. I mean, gaining marks by rote. So we can lament obviously on this, but then unless some step is taken at the national level, and even in the private sector, if people come forward and they set up some systems in which this methodology is followed, they are bound to reap benefits. But the only thing is that it takes a lot of time. So because of the fact that people are after immediate gains, so in the private sector, which if people come out and start following such a system, they often get frustrated and disappointed because see, such things take a lot of time and similarly a lot of investment. So patience again here is the name of the game, and because of the fact that it's a huge ask, it has to be at the government level that people realize. But then these are the suggestions that we can give, and only hope and pray that some they land on ears who are able to catch them and try to implement them.
Thank you, Dr. Shehzad. Rafia, you can have your question now.
Dr. Shehzad, we were explaining about namaz, that there are certain things which are essential that we must read. I'm a little confused. I just want to know that when we go into Raku, we have to say Subhan Rabbil Azim, and then we stand up and we say Sami Allah Liman Hamida. But when we go into Sajda, don't we say Subhan Rabbil Ala?
So I think what I was explaining was that as far as the utterances of the ruku or the prostration is concerned, they are just recommendations like Subhana Rabbiyal Azim and Subhana Rabbiyal Ala. They are not mandatory that we need to say exactly these words. We can pronounce any dua, anything that comes to our mind, any supplication. Subhana Rabbiyal Azim or Subhana Rabbiyal Ala are just a few of those recommendations. So in our prostration, in our ruku, while kneeling, the words that we are required to say have been left to our discretion, and that is why this is a place in which we can even offer these supplications or the words that come to our mind, even in our own language. And I think I have discussed this a number of times that there are 5 instances in which you have to, all of us required to say the Arabic words, the utterance of the prayer in Arabic. All the rest is optional, and therefore not only can it be said in our own language, but also whatever comes to our mind. And when I say this, I base my deductions on the research of my own teacher, Ustaz Javed Ahmed Ghamidi. This is basically his research that I am communicating it to you. He has written in detail on this and lectured on this as well, and shown that how the prayer itself, the namaz itself, not only the postures of them have been transmitted through perpetuation, which is tawatur, but it is these utterances that are transmitted through perpetuation or tawatur, which in fact make them mandatory to be said in Arabic. So the reasoning is something which I just explained. Otherwise, other than these 5 instances, at all other places within the prayer, it's entirely up to you to say whatever you like and whatever dua would you like to make.
Shehzad, do we have to say Sami Allah Liman Hamida?
Yes, that is one of the compulsory Arabic utterances. I think I've enumerated them several times, that there are 5 of them. So Allahu Akbar is one of them. Surah Fatiha is the second of them. Reading the Qur'an is the third. Sami Allahu liman hamida is the fourth, and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah is the fifth. So these are the 5 utterances that have to be pronounced loudly, of course, by the Imam when he's leading the congregation, and they have to be in Arabic. And we just cannot. There's no other. We have not been given any discretion in these 5, but in the rest of the postures, we have been given discretion.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Adil Qureshi, you may have your question now.
Doctor.
Walaikum assalam.
So, Doctor, in these ayats where it says "Wala nukallifu nafsan illa wusaha," I think very similar ayats were also exist in the last 2 ayats of Surah Al-Baqarah, where Allah Almighty says, "La yukallifu Allahu nafsan illa wusaha." I was just curious as to when even here it is being said, and even in those ayats is being said the same thing. Why does then Allah Almighty encourage us to? Why did Allah Almighty encourage us to pray like asking Him, "Rabbana wala tuhammilna ma la taqata lana bi"? When He already says that I will not be asking you to do something that you can't do. Why do we still have to pray that please don't put us more, not more than what we can handle?
This is obviously he himself has made this commitment that he would not do that. But in that particular instance, it is often also a case of reminder in which the Almighty reminds us and tells us that, remember, this is a commitment that I have made, I'll not do that. And this is particularly the case when people of the book, they were faced with this ordeal, that they had to follow certain directives which were virtually very difficult to follow, and they were given, as I said, because of their own rebelliousness. So basically, even though God has made this commitment, whenever He says that she shall not do it, it's like reviving that commitment and reminding us. So remember that God is a living God, and if He repeats something in a different style, again, the purpose is that this is something which is going to happen. It's like a reminder to us. It's a commitment that is going to happen, and at the same time, it's like something that you ask for Him, that God do not make us liable to the same directives that you made liable to the previous nation. So this is like our request to Him, in spite of the fact that He had made this promise. This is our request to Him, because here particularly we are also referring to the fact that God, don't make us so rebellious that we become deserving of the same sort of directive. So concealed in it is also a prayer for ourselves, that make us humble at heart, and don't make us go astray, so that you have to break your promise. I mean, when the Almighty says that He will not burden a person beyond his capacity, this relates to normal circumstances. This doesn't relate to punishments. So in punishments, it's not that the Almighty does not go beyond the limits. He does. So this is one of the practices of the Almighty, that in normal circumstances, the Sharia is exactly something that we can bear. But when a person becomes rebellious, then the directives which are given to such people or such nations, as you can see in the case of the Jews, they are much beyond their capacity, and therefore very difficult to follow. So one is a normal circumstance, and the other one is in a circumstance in which a person becomes liable to these harsh directives because of one's own attitude.
Thank you. Nusrat Khwaja, you can ask your question now.
Quran, and today also in the ayahs you selected, Quran, Allah Ta'ala says, tell us, do not do shirk. But I find some of the Jamaats, they take advantage of wasila. They kind of portray Ghaus al-Azam and others as, like they ask directly Ghaus al-Azam for help, but they say that he is a wasila. They are not doing shirk, but they claim that they are calling him to be a wasila, to reach Allah Ta'ala, which is similar to what mushrikeen before Islam were claiming their idols in Kaaba to be a wasila to the God. How do you see this? I mean, how can we counter this thought?
Yes, this is exactly true, and this is what they express. لِيُقَرِّبُنَا زُلْفَى are the words, which mean that we worship them, so that these intermediaries, they take us close to God. So when they contact their intermediaries, it is not that they are just asking them to connect us to God. They say that we will be worshiping you, so that you become a means of us accessing the Almighty. And this is generally the case with polytheism in most religions, that there is a supreme God, and this supreme God is someone that is generally thought to be out of reach. And there are intermediaries who, if they are worshipped, if they are pleased in some form or the other, and people go as far as human sacrifice in pleasing these demigods or these deities in order to please them. And then if you please them, then it is believed that they would be able to secure a high position for you in the hereafter. So yes, this is exactly what polytheism is. And so when they say that they are associates of God, they don't give them the same status. I mean, they don't give them the equal status, so to speak, with God. They think that they are intermediaries, they are a means to take themselves to God. And to achieve this intermediate accession, they actually worship these intermediaries, and they prostrate before them. They, as I said, make sacrifices before them, so that they think that because they are intermediaries and they have contact with God, so if they please these intermediaries, they will intercede for them in the hereafter. So the whole concept of polytheism, of course, is not that all these deities are of equal status. Generally, there is a supreme God, and the rest are lesser deities. But yes, they are deities. They are. I mean, they are. They could be lesser in status, but it is not that they are not worshipped.
Yeah, but these big Jamaats in Pakistan, they are claiming or they are asking Ghaus Azam to help, and
So
they don't
see, they
accept
are.
that it's a shirk. They say it's wasila.
That is precisely. See, they are monotheists who have become deviant monotheists, much like Christians who are monotheists primarily. But when they say that Jesus is the Son of God, they say that this is not against monotheism at all. It cannot be regarded as polytheism. So what we can say is that these are deviant monotheists. They have left the path of monotheism, even though that they claim themselves to be monotheists. And the Quran has taught us this lesson, that whatever a person calls himself or herself, we will not dispute it. So even if these people indulge in blatant forms of polytheism, and they think that it is in line with monotheism, we just cannot call them polytheists. They will be monotheists, and as I said, the correct name perhaps would be that they are deviant monotheists, and they should be discussed and debated with. But as I said, this is something of a debate that has been going on for a long period of time. They've not just come into being, and mostly the reasons for their existence is at times they are very weak narratives, weak ahadiths, which give them this notion, and also the fact that they think that these saints and these revered personalities, for example, the word awliya, the way it is used in the Quran, they think it is used for such personalities, whereas the Quran, when it uses the word awliya, which is the plural of wali, it just means a friend of God, and any believer can be a friend of God. So the Quran says, Allahu waliyul lazina amanu. God is the wali of those who are believers. And in Arabic, wali means companion, friend, and the sort. So what happened at times is that they made certain terms outside the Quran, and then they derived this from the Quran. That look, if we are believing in these awliya or these wali, then the Quran is actually referring to these saints and these revered personalities. So at times, because of misinterpreting certain Quranic verses, at times because of certain weak ahadiths, they sincerely think, and there's no insincerity about them. They sincerely think that they have to reach God through these revered personalities. Of course, this is something that we would criticize, but then this is how they would believe, and I would not say that they are insincere. All that I would say is that this is an erroneous belief.
Thank you, Mohammed. You can ask question now.
Jazakallah, Doctor. So, my question is regarding fitra. That fitra normally, what we know is 2 kilo wheat or rice given before the Eid. Is it supposed to be given locally, or we can send it to Pakistan, or is it possible to give money, or better to give food, buy the food and give it to them?
So basically, it's charity. It can be given in cash or in kind. And when the Prophet was once asked that why do we give it, and his reply was that this is like compensation for some of the blemishes that we might do in the month of Ramadan. So it's like a compensation. But the amount of the fitra, which is if we gather all the prophetic narratives, that what comes to light is that it is a day's food that you eat. The amount of food that you eat in one day, equivalent in currency, you don't have to give it. Don't have to require to give food. So the calculation would be what you consume in one day. Just convert that into currency,